We're in the thick of an election, and this one, well, it's different. Artificial intelligence, it's everywhere. And I mean everywhere in this election.
Yeah, it really does feel like a turning point.
Totally. Makes you think, what if you're getting all your election info from a chatbot? I mean, would you trust it?
That's the question, isn't it? It's really the reality we're facing this year.
This is 2024, and AI is changing everything. How we get info, how candidates, run their campaigns, even how other countries try to mess with things. It's a lot.
It is, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, AI could be amazing for giving voters easy access to information.
Right.
But at the same time, it opens up these possibilities for manipulation that, well, we've just never seen before.
Yeah, totally agree. That's why this deep dive is so important, right? We've got to, we got to understand where AI could go wrong in this election so we can be, informed voters, right? Make good choices.
I think that's exactly right. If we want a healthy democracy, we need informed voters. And one of the biggest worries, honestly, is how accurate the information is that's coming from these AI chatbots.
Yeah, I mean, some researchers actually tested this out, right? Like, put them to the test.
They did. They took 5 of the top AI models, Claude, Gemini, GPT-4.
GPT-4, that's the one everyone's talking about.
It is, and also Llama 2 and Mixtral. And they tested them with, just your average voter questions. And the results were, well, they were pretty alarming.
Alarming is a good word for it. I mean, half the answers that these chatbots spit out were just plain wrong.
Yeah.
Like, according to the experts.
Right, inaccurate. And a whole bunch of them were, categorized as harmful, or they weren't complete answers, or they even showed some bias.
So we're not just talking about, getting the wrong date for an election or something, right? This is big stuff, potentially misleading voters on really crucial issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't just, theoretical anymore. We've seen examples of this happening already, like in the European Parliament elections.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, even the popular ones, like ChatGPT and Perplexity, they were spreading misinformation.
So the takeaway here is, you can't just ask a chatbot a question and, blindly trust the answer.
Right.
We've got to be way more critical of the info we're getting, especially with all this AI stuff floating around.
You got it. These AI models, they're trained on tons and tons of data.
Right, I've heard about that. Huge amounts of data.
But they can't tell what's true and what's false, especially when it comes to something as, messy as politics. I mean, they can easily just repeat misinformation that's already out there,
Amplify it.
Exactly. Or even make up brand new falsehoods. But that's a huge threat to democracy. I mean, how can you have a real democracy if people don't know what's true?
Absolutely. And it's not just about voters being misled.
Right.
AI it's also making foreign interference in our elections even worse.
Oh, much worse, yeah.
I was reading some intelligence reports that said countries like Russia, Iran, they're using AI to try to influence the U.S. election. That's scary stuff.
It is, and it's really scary. Deepfakes.
Deepfakes. Yeah, those are creepy.
They are, and they're getting more and more realistic. These are like videos and audio recordings made with AI that show political figures, like presidents and stuff, saying or doing things that they never actually said or did.
It's not just rumors anymore. It's like they're creating whole events, statements, all made up. It's got to be hard for people to tell what's real and what's fake.
And that's exactly the point. They're designed to do that, to confuse people, to exploit, those anxieties and divisions that are already out there.
Make them seem believable.
Exactly. Remember that fake video that was going around about Haitian immigrants voting illegally in Georgia?
I guess I saw something about that.
Yeah, that was a deep fake.
Wow. So it's like AI is being weaponized,
Yeah.
to sow discord, to manipulate people, and it's playing on people's fears and prejudices.
Exactly. It's a whole other level of election interference, and we're going to need a really strong response to fight it.
Absolutely. So what can we do? What are election officials doing about this?
Well, the good news is that they know how serious this is, and they are working on ways to fight back. One thing they're looking at is something called pre-bunking.
Pre-bunking? That's a new one. What is that?
It's actually really interesting. It's before people are exposed to the real misinformation, you show them a weaker version of it.
A weaker version?
Yeah, you show them how these false stories are made, why they're misleading, and it can actually make them more resistant to the real thing.
Oh, so it's like you're giving people a mental vaccine against misinformation, like training their brains to spot the red flags and, think critically about the stuff they're seeing online.
That's a great way to put it, a mental vaccine. It's about giving people the tools to be smarter about the information they see, especially with all this AI content out there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's not just about being careful ourselves, right? It's about the government doing something too
Right.
to protect us from this stuff.
Absolutely. We need action at every level.
Like that AI executive order that the Biden administration put out.
Exactly. That's one example. That order, it encourages the government to develop ways to authenticate their communications, which could help build trust.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the Center for Democracy and Technology, the CDT? I think they're doing something about this too, right?
Yeah, they're really active on this issue. They're pushing the Federal Election Commission to really address the whole deepfake problem, put in some rules to stop them from being used in campaigns.
So they're trying to get some regulations in place to keep up with all this technology, right?
Yeah.
And protect our elections.
Right, because technology changes so fast and our laws need to keep up. It's complicated, right? It's not just one thing. We need people to be smarter about what they see online, but we also need the platforms and the people making the rules to do their part too.
So it's like a two-way street, right? We've got to be careful, but there also need to be rules in place to keep things fair. What about the campaigns themselves? Are they using AI?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And this is where things get even, I don't know, even trickier, I guess. There was a recent study that found something pretty interesting and kind of worrying too.
Okay.
It turns out people are really worried about AI being used to, mess with elections.
Right. Makes
But
sense.
there's this sort of blind spot when it comes to their own party.
Blind spot? What do you mean?
People are more likely to, I don't know, to look the other way if their own party is using AI in a way that's, well, maybe not so ethical.
So it's like, even if we're worried about AI being used to manipulate elections, we're okay with it as long as it's, our side doing it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like we're willing to give our own team a pass, even if we know it's wrong.
That's pretty messed up. And it kind of suggests that, our own biases can make us more vulnerable to this stuff, to AI manipulation.
Yeah.
Especially if it's coming from a source we already trust, right?
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to be critical, no matter who you support. You have to be able to look at information and question it. Question the sources,
Yep.
Be skeptical, especially if something seems too good to be true.
So how do we get past this partisan blind spot? I mean, is that even possible these days? Things are so divided.
It's tough, for sure. But I think awareness is a good place to start. Just realizing that we all have these biases, we all have these blind spots can help us be more careful. And actually, there was something kind of hopeful in that same study.
Really? Like what?
It turns out when people were shown examples of, this shady AI stuff, they actually became more likely to support, regulations, rules about how AI can be used.
Oh, interesting. So it's like seeing the bad stuff actually made them want to do something about it?
Exactly. It's like a wake-up call. It makes people realize, hey, wait a minute, we need some rules here.
That's good. At least it's, it's something. So maybe there's hope that people will start demanding more accountability from, the tech companies and stuff.
I think so. And it also shows how important it is to talk about this stuff, to be open about how AI is being used in elections. The more people know, the better they'll be at spotting the problems and demanding solutions.
So it's not just about being wary of AI. It's about actively being part of the conversation about how it should be used. Making sure it's used ethically, especially when it comes to our democracy. But even if people are worried about AI, being used to manipulate elections, are they totally against it being used at all?
That's a good question. And, the study actually looked at that too. And what they found was that, most voters are okay with AI being used for the more basic stuff, like, writing content or analyzing data. It's the deceptive stuff that people really have a problem with.
So it's like, it's okay to use AI as a tool, but it has to be used, responsibly.
Exactly. The problem is, how do we draw the line? Where do we say, okay, this is ethical, this is not? And then how do we actually enforce those rules?
Yeah, that's a tough one. It's not easy.
It's not, and it's going to take everyone working together to figure it out. The tech companies, the policymakers, and the public. We all need to be part of this conversation.
It sounds like we're, I don't know, walking a tightrope here.
Yeah.
We want to use the power of AI, but we also don't want it to, mess everything up, especially when it comes to something as important as our elections.
You said it. It's a balancing act, and it's not going to be easy, but it's important. It's really important.
It really is a lot to wrap your head around. As we move into this future with AI everywhere, we have to be so careful about what it means for our democracy.
I agree. The potential for things to go wrong is definitely there. It can feel, well, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. But I think it helps to remember that technology, it's a tool, right?
Right, like a hammer.
Exactly, like a hammer. You can build something great with a hammer,
Right.
or you can use it to, well, to hurt someone.
So it's not like the future is set in stone. It really comes down to the choices we make now about how we develop AI, how we use it.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. We have the power to choose what kind of future we want. And I think it starts with, demanding more transparency from the people who are creating these AI systems.
And accountability,
Right.
right? Like they have to be held responsible if things go wrong.
Absolutely. But we also have to, we have to educate ourselves. We need to understand how AI works, what it can do, what it can't do, so we can make good choices as voters, as citizens.
So it's not enough to just be wary of AI.
Yeah.
We have to be active,
Right.
right? Learn about it, talk about it.
Exactly. And maybe the most important thing is to stay engaged. Democracy isn't, it's not something you just watch. It's something you participate in. You have to think critically. You have to speak up. You have to, you have to hold the people in power accountable.
We can't just sit back and hope for the best. We have to be informed, we have to be active, and we have to make sure that technology serves us, not the other way around.
Well said. That's what it all comes down to.
That's about all the time we have for this deep dive. We've covered a lot, but really this is just the beginning. So keep thinking, stay informed, and make your voice heard. Because the future of democracy in the age of AI, well, it's in our hands.